to fire. The notion of our great power as the ultimate deity is unique in the text of the Nag Hammadi library. That phraseology doesn't appear anywhere else, but it does appear interesting enough in other texts like the Magical Papyri, hence that connection with being invisible and being immune to fire. But this is the most Gnostic text of Codex 6 and contains the mythological elements of how the god of flesh created the physical world and how it's going to be doomed to go down in eternal fire with this physical world. However, those that come to have knowledge of our great power will be saved through coming to know their true spiritual nature. Same theme now, of which is spelled out in this text from the primordial period of the flood to the age, which we call the ages of flesh, to the age of the soul, the period after the flood, to the coming of the revealer, a special term, where people will come to know some truth about reality. However, the revealer, who's pretty clearly Jesus, though he's never named as such in this text, he's always just called the revealer, will come to teach the truth in 72 languages. This is probably just a parable metaphor for all the languages of the world, and he will speak secretly in parables. It's clearly Jesus. After being betrayed, he'll descend and defeat the underworld before ascending back up into the world of our great power. A final aeon will then begin when the followers of the revealer will be attacked and persecuted viciously. Many of these later sections of the text are probably what scholars call ex eventu prophecy. They're where you describe what's happening now as if it were describing what's happening in the future, probably recalling the wars in Judea and maybe even up to the rule of Julian the Apostate, who the text might set up as a kind of Antichrist figure that it calls the imitator. This period of persecution by the archons will go on for 1468 years. By the way, that's a Manichaean number. That is how long the universe itself will last until the final conflagration, spiritually purifies everything by fire, in which mercy will then begin to flow from the divine Sophia, thus inaugurating the final aeon of beauty and marriage, in which the spiritual they'll dwell forever with the great power. As I mentioned, this text is the most Gnostic of those found in Nag Hammadi 6, though it is interesting that Jesus himself is never mentioned by name in the text. And yet again, this language here betrays a kind of Valentinian-influenced origin. That language of bride and bridegroom and marriage is typically a Valentinian language. The text here is also idiosyncratic as well. It's lacking a great deal of the mythological elements of other texts, focusing specifically on the long arc of spiritual salvation from the very... This period of persecution by the archons will go on for 1468 years. By the way, that's a Manichaean number. That is how long the universe itself will last until the final conflagration, spiritually purifies everything by fire, in which mercy will then begin to flow from the divine Sophia, thus inaugurating the final aeon of beauty and marriage, in which the spiritual they'll dwell forever with the great power. As I mentioned, this text is the most Gnostic of those found in Nag Hammadi 6, though it is interesting that Jesus himself